The NFL draft is officially 10 days away, and we are not waiting till next week. We are going to be talking some NFL draft tonight. We're going to be talking some of the worst trades ever in NFL history, more modern day, most likely, and we're going to address the situation with the University of Tennessee. So do us a favor, kick back, relax, because episode number 39 of 609 Sports Talk, it starts right now. And once again, hello everyone. Welcome back to another edition of 609 Sports Talk live here on Facebook, YouTube, and of course, you can catch us out on Spotify every Wednesday once these episodes drop. Of course, you guys know this is the show that unites fans and of always ignites a whole heck of a lot of debate. As always, we are your hosts, Sam Nelson, Tyler Adams, and we are joined tonight by a special guest. He is a senior writer for ChicagoSportsHQ.com, Mr. Dustin Reese. Dustin, welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. So, Dustin, of course, you came across us last week. We got into talking. Thought it'd be a nice idea to have you on the show. Has enough, especially that you're a writer for Chicago Bears. That's awesome. So it's nice to have you on. We have a lot of stuff to go through here. We're going to talk some draft stuff. We're definitely going to be doing that later on in the show. We're going to talk some NFL trade stuff a little bit later on as well. To start the show, we got some college football drama. Who doesn't love a good old drama in a sport that hasn't been around since the end of the winter? Tennessee. They are in a very sticky situation with their starting quarterback. Does somebody want to give a shot at his name? Because I'm going to butcher it. Somebody else.
Yeah, I always forget his last name. I know what you're talking about.
Well, the problem is that people are making.
I have no idea.
What was that, Tyler?
Iamaleava? I have no idea. It's my best shot.
I'm assuming I'm saying it right. It's Nico. Iamaleava. Something in that regard. Either way, we're calling him Nico for the rest of the show. I'm not trying to pronounce his name 1,000 times. Apparently, he is out as the Tennessee starting quarterback. They are moving on from him. He was apparently looking at some potential transfer portal ideas, and of course, but then Oregon head coach Dan Lanning went over to Tennessee and said, hey, your starting quarterback is apparently trying to leave. Now, there's a new report that surfaced that this has been going on since the playoffs. There is now a report saying that this has been going on since December, and it wasn't just him. He was just at the center point of it. And this all has to do with NIL money. He's making $2 million. He wants $4 million. The school's not willing to do it, it sounds like. He missed spring practices. Ultimately, Tennessee decided, hey, we're moving on. So I will let our special guest go first. But let me ask you guys the question. With this whole situation surrounding Tennessee, do you guys believe NIL money is making it? I guess I want to ask if it's ruining college football, but I don't think it's that extreme, but it's really the best way I can put it. What do you guys think about the whole NIL situation? So, Dustin, take it off.
I don't think it's ruining college football as much as the transfer portal is, mainly because you can transfer 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, however many times you want to transfer just because you're unhappy in a certain situation. But when it comes to the NIL, you knew at some point players were going to have to get paid. Whether you agree with the amount of money they're getting paid or not, that's a topic for a different day. But when, as a college football player, as a college basketball player, when you're bringing in that much money for the school every single year, when you're basically, that is a 40-hour-a-week job for these sports athletes. Like, they go to class, and then they're putting in basically 40 hours a week on the practice field, studying film, doing all this other stuff that you would be doing at a full-time job. They needed to be compensated for it somewhat. And I know the argument was, well, all these players are on scholarship. They have their room and board paid for. They had their food paid for and this and that. And, like, that's all well and good. But when it comes to, like, the University of Alabama and Ohio State, for example, the football program made $464 million for the school last year. That's 120 players that made $500 million for your university. You're trying to tell me that those 120 players don't deserve some part of that cut in some aspect? I mean, granted, some schools, I think, give out too much NIL money, but these players do deserve to be paid at least something. The question is now, where do you draw the line as to who makes what, who doesn't make what? Because you see players like, I'm going to use Cooper Flagg, for example, on this. Obviously, he's not a college football player. But Cooper Flagg right now is deciding whether he's going to enter the draft or go back to college. And his argument is, if I'm the number one pick in the NBA draft, I sign a 5-year contract worth about $32 million. That averages out to be around $6 million a year, but every year the contract goes up. If he goes back to Duke next year, he's making $9 million in NIL. He's going to be getting paid more to go back to college another year as opposed to having to play out 5 years of his rookie deal.
Yeah. And Tyler, do you want to show your thoughts on that?
Dustin's got a lot of good points. I actually would like to throw out a suggestion. And since it almost seems like college football is turning into almost like the NFL, I don't mind players getting paid. I'm cool with that. But you bring up a good point, being able to transfer constantly. How about if these players want to make money and negotiate these NLI deals, how about we actually make it closer to the NFL? How about we time into contracts? 2 years, all 4 years, negotiate a contract for your time there. So that way you can avoid these kind of situations like Tennessee is going through right now.
Or even better, let's just say in this situation, the quarterback wants $4 million and Tennessee agrees to pay him $4 million. If that athlete is to enter the transfer portal, all that NIL money should be voided by the university and said, we had an agreement that we were going to give you $4 million to be at our university. You entered the portal. That money's now gone. You can figure out how you're going to get it elsewhere.
Yeah, that's valid. Like, NIL money, it's great. It was a great inception to college sports. Definitely needs a lot more tweaking to get it right, to make it fair for the players, fair for these universities.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Now, like Dustin brought up earlier, Dustin, what were you said earlier? Ohio State and Alabama brought in how much?
Ohio State and Alabama brought in $468 million just from like ticket sales, merchandise, everything else. They brought in $468 million for the university. They showed a stat during the championship game that Ohio State, when they were playing in it, Ohio State starting 11 offensive players were getting paid $41 million total in NIL money. And obviously, guys like Jeremiah Smith makes more. Guys like Trevion Henderson make more than some of the other players, but it still averages out to be almost $4 million per offensive starter for a college football team.
Yeah. Now, personally, I am also not a believer in it. NIL money is ruining the sport. I personally don't mind it. I know Dustin brought up the transfer portal. I kind of like this. I like the idea of this because, and we've been talking about this on the show for months. We talked about it with the playoff. College football has a little bit of a rejuvenance now because it's not the same 4 teams. Let's be real. Some schools have been paying players. We just didn't know about it.
Oh, yeah.
Before all this stuff became like a reality. It wasn't hard to figure it out. But, I mean, Manti Te'o had a friggin' kept his girlfriend more private than this. But anyway, I don't mind what they're trying to do with it because of the fact that now college football is more, to me, it's more entertaining. Like, all right, you can make the case with the playoff. That definitely needs some tweaking, especially the way they seed it. But the problem with the NIL is I think there's not enough structure to it yet. That's the problem. And clearly some of these schools are just going to blow other schools out of the water, like Dustin said. Ohio State, Alabama. Hell, I don't even think. I'll just go with my team. I don't even think Penn State could draw that much money in, and Penn State's not a small school, but Ohio State's Ohio State. Like,
well, and same thing with Oregon though, because look at who Oregon's alma mater is, the president of Nike. That guy could shell out however much money he wants to in that university every single year and be like, here's an $80 million check, divide it out in NIL money anywhere you want.
Exactly. And that's where some of these is going to get a little iffy, because some of these schools, they can't compete with that. Like, that's where the structure becomes a little weird, because not every school can afford the same thing. Like, clearly, I don't think Tennessee is going to be able to compete with an Alabama. I don't think that's ever going to be the case. Also, I think what Nico really has to do is take a really good look in the mirror. And I want to get back on that, because I want to get both everyone's thoughts on just strictly right now the situation with Tennessee. I think he personally needs to take a really big look in the mirror of how he played last year before he comes out and starts demanding all of this more money. So I get it, but I don't think. First of all, Tennessee's already told you that he wasn't going to do it. So, Tyler, I took care of that already.
Okay.
Yeah, it's gone now. So, anyway, I personally have no issue with NIL. I think it's fine for everybody, because these teams can. It's basically almost like NFL, especially with the transfer portal. It's almost like NFL free agency. You can pay kids, and especially kids like. Remember years ago, Alabama would have like five-star recruit running backs. Two of them wouldn't even see the field till like their second or third year on the team. Now these kids are like, well, hey, I can just go back, find somewhere else, transfer, make my money, and probably play more. Like, perfect example. Look at Penn State. Katron Allen and Nick Singleton. They saw how loaded the running back class was for this year's draft, and they're like, all right, we'll go back to school. We're going to make some money anyway. Let's go. We'll come out when the freaking position's a little weaker. We'll get drafted higher, but for now, we'll stay here. Now, granted, I think they had a bigger option was Penn State's got some unfinished business, but that's just my thought on it. I just don't think – I definitely don't think that Nico took the right approach to the whole situation.
Mm-hmm.
Going out, trying to find a deal. And I give a lot of credit to Dan Lanning for letting them know about the situation, because clearly he contacted Oregon. So what are your guys' thoughts just on the situation involving Tennessee as a whole?
I mean, I'm not going to say there's damage control that needs to be done just because the player brought it on himself. He's the one that asked for more money. He's the one that didn't get it. So instead of manning up and being like, fine, it is what it is, he wanted to throw a little temper tantrum and decided not to show up to practice, and ultimately got kicked out of the program. So now he's faced with a situation where he has no choice but to enter the transfer portal now. Yeah. What high-level FBS program is going to want to bring his attitude in, knowing the crap that he just pulled at Tennessee? Like, what happens if he goes to this program and they said, we're going to give you this for NIL money, but we can't give you this? Are you going to do what you just did at Tennessee and back out of our program, not show up to practice? He might be forced now to settle with a mid-major school, or even worse, go down to the FCS, because every major school in the country knows what happened now. Every major school in the country knows kind of the reputation he's going to have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Sam made a good point before. He didn't play great last year. He wasn't one of the top quarterbacks in college last year. Like, he doesn't really have that much leverage. I think he started the season stronger than he finished it, but I don't get where he was trying to get $2 million extra from and trying to hold out like it's the NFL.
Yeah.
But I think Tennessee ultimately handled it well. I kind of like what Tennessee said ultimately in response to him, and they said nobody's bigger than the program. And I think that you have to look back on that, and all these programs, they've been around for generations.
Yeah, they have.
Like, no one player. Yeah, they can be a generational player. Cool. How many other generational players went through the program?
I mean, Peyton Manning is the one that comes to the
Yeah,
list.
he'll never be bigger than Peyton. So
No.
And he will never be better than Hendon Hooker. Hendon Hooker was there just 2 years ago, and Hendon Hooker had the best season a Tennessee quarterback has ever had since Peyton Manning. And since then, they haven't had anything near that level of play.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Hendon Hooker was only getting $600K in NIL money. You didn't see him complaining that he wanted more money despite the year he had.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because ultimately, and see, this is the other thing. Ultimately, the goal for these kids, now look, I get it. I agree with everything Dustin said earlier on how these kids are a big reason why college football makes so much money. They deserve a part of it. I 100% agree with that. However, the goal for you is to honestly is to get to the next level to where you make your big money.
Yeah.
Like, you still have a goal here to get to the NFL to where you make your ridiculous money. Now, don't get me wrong. I get it. Some of these kids are not going to live that dream. I get it. Some of these kids aren't going to pan out in the NFL. They're not going to get that payday. I get it. So for some of them to fight for that NIL money, it may be the only thing they have. However, to me, this is not the time to sit here and say, I want more money, when not only did I have a subpar season, I was blown out in the first 2 quarters of my playoff game against Ohio State. Like, it didn't even take to the third quarter for you to tell me that game was over. Probably the first 3 possessions could have told you that.
Right.
Now, granted, Nico doesn't play defense. I'm not saying it's all his fault, but it's not. He didn't help any. So I did find the full little report about what happened during the playoff. But before I get to that, I do just want to get the chat here going. The comments are flying in. Dustin, you have already become the GOAT already in terms of Anthony's comments. So I got another comment from Anthony that I have to address real quick. So give me 1 second. Carol said, "Hi everyone. Heard today when you were the champ. Every day is Victory Monday. So happy Victory Monday."
We give Victory Mondays every week up until next season.
Well, it'll be Victory Friday, the first one, when we're playing on Thursday. But either way. So Zolt said Tyler nailed the solution, and frankly, 2 years should be the max. Gives the opportunity to reset the money, coaching staff, everything. Yeah.
I like that idea.
I think.
Yeah.
The only reason why I disagree with a 2-year thing, and this doesn't happen all the time, but you have to take Alabama into consideration this year, where Nick Saban retired. They brought in the new coach, the Washington's head coach, Kellen DeBoer, or whatever his last name. I think that's his name. And 35 players transferred from Washington to go to Alabama, because they even admitted the only reason why they went to Washington was because of Coach DeBoer. Had they known that he thought he was going to be leaving Washington after 1 year, every single one of those players said they would not have committed to Washington. That's why I think that 2-year thing is hard to hold a player by, because if you're committing to a program based on the coach that's there, if he just gets up and leaves the next season, now you're faced with, well, why did I commit here if the guy that I committed for is not staying here?
Yeah. And I'm glad a second ago you brought up Saban. This whole situation, there's a big reason why Saban retired, because he said, I was not about to play this game with kids and try to pay them to stay. He said he wasn't going to do it. So this is why people want to say Saban was done coaching. No, he wasn't. He just wasn't about to deal with this. Now, of course, there are jokes about it saying that, Nick's no longer the guaranteed top 4 seed, so we'll see. But either way.
He was cool with handing out money under the table, and back when they couldn't complain about it. They just kind of had to take what they got and shh.
I mean, look at the quarterback that we had in 2018. You had Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, and Mac Jones all on your quarterback room. You can't tell me that you weren't paying every single one of those guys something under the table, because every single one of those quarterbacks would have started for another program in the country.
Yep.
And 2 of them were sitting doing nothing.
Yep.
Yeah. So Zolt then also came out and said, dude, definitely he played bad, worried about his future earnings, and wanted to maximize while he could. Yeah, exactly. He knows he didn't play well, and he's trying to maximize it. But he didn't handle it the right way. He definitely hasn't handled it the right way, especially not reporting the practice. And spring practices are important. I don't think we're emphasizing how important those are to these programs. They are not. He did not approach this the right way.
Yeah.
All right. So Anthony decides to take a jab at my Penn State Nittany line, saying we have no unfinished business. I'm sorry, Anthony. How'd the Rose Bowl go for you? Let me ask you that question. How was the Rose Bowl this year? I'm pretty sure you were down, 35-0, about 45 minutes into that game?
It felt like 45 seconds into that game for how quick Ohio State scored in the first quarter.
Now, Sam, would Penn State have fared better in that situation?
Yeah, because
Ohio State.
They know Ohio State better. They know like the tendencies that Ohio State likes to use. They know exactly how to guard Jeremiah Smith and some of the pieces that Oregon didn't have to guard because it was an unfamiliar situation.
They did play him close earlier in the year.
That was week 2, though, wasn't it? Like week 2, those teams were dramatically different.
Yeah.
Like Jeremiah Smith wasn't what Jeremiah Smith was at the end of the year in week 2.
Jeremiah Smith is going to be a thorn in my side for at least the next 2 years, and all I can say is I am happy that we somehow pried Jim Knowles away from them, because I'm going to need every advantage against that kid that I can, because the kid's a stud. I mean, there's no way, shape, or form about it. The kid is going to be an absolute stud on Saturdays and on Sundays. I don't think there's any disagreement there.
He's supposed to be in high school right now.
Exactly. You want to talk about high school? We go to Alabama. Ryan Williams is just as good. He's like 17 years old. Like, that's going to be fun next year. I'm going to keep my eyes solely on those two and just watch how that their year turns out.
Oh yeah.
So Clint's also in the chat. What's going on, Clint?
What's up, Clint?
So Clint said apparently Ohio State is interested in Nico, and he hopes they stay away from him. Well, I mean, who's in line right now to be Ohio State's starter now that Will Howard's gone?
Whoever their backup was last year, I'm guessing.
Yeah, so I mean, would it be the worst possible thing to take a look into it? I mean, don't get me wrong. Trust me, if Ohio State's willing to pay him the money, Ohio State has the money. We clearly know that now.
Yeah.
They're only going to give him the money if they plan on starting him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the other thing. Some places may say, hey, come over here, but guess what? You're going to have to earn your spot. I mean, you were the guaranteed starter at Tennessee. That wasn't good enough for you. And I guess Clint's going back to when we were talking about spring practice, saying we're talking about practice. There's the AI reference. All right, so here's the full situation that happened back in the winter during the playoff. So apparently this states that Nico and others threatened to opt out of last season's playoff unless they were paid more money. This stuff was happening last December during the playoff, with this kid included. But not just this kid. They were trying to get more money from Tennessee and other playoff teams before the playoff. They were trying to leverage playoff participation.
Mm-hmm.
So the exclaimer was, our client is being paid X amount of money to participate in 12 games, maybe a 13th, if you make the conference championship game, but you guys made the playoff, he should make money. He should make more money. I don't know why somebody doesn't know how to tweet and said money instead of more money. This is the kind of BS that's happening behind the scenes right now. So, okay. What are your thoughts on that? Because
it's hard to go off of that because you look at some of the teams that made the college football playoff this year. SMU does not have a ton of NIL money. Arizona State doesn't have a ton of NIL money. Boise State doesn't have a ton of NIL money. Notre Dame is probably, they're a Power 5 conference. They probably have the least amount of NIL money of all the Power 5 teams. Like, Tennessee has more NIL money than all 4 of those programs that were in the college football playoff. Indiana is another school that probably only has about $10 million in NIL money. Half that playoff field is not even in the top 20 for NIL money. And they just made it to the playoffs because of how they recruit, how they transfer, and just the coaching staff and culture they're created.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I mean, look at Ashton Genty. Ashton Genty got paid $50,000 in NIL money last year. What do you think he would have got paid if he was at Bama or one of these other schools? Same with Cam Scadaboo.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Cam Scadaboo didn't even get paid NIL money last year because he was a walk-on. Because he was originally a Division II football or a Sacramento State football player that transferred in to Arizona State when Sacramento State's head coach took the Arizona State job. He didn't have any NIL money last year and did what he did.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm not one to say, but please do not bring up Cam Scadaboo or Tyler's not going to shut up for the next 20 minutes. That's
all
his
I'm
job.
saying is I'm happy that he's not viewed as like one of the top 5 running backs in the draft.
In your eyes, he may not be.
I've seen a lot of mock drafts.
Well, if you look at the combine grades and how like take what you will from the combine grades, but Cam Scadaboo graded out as the number 2 running back in the combine.
Oh, I'm not surprised. I think he's the best running back aside from Genty.
I'd say he's third. I like Trevion Henderson as number 2 just because when the guy blocks, he's thinking put you on your butt.
That's you just.
Do you guys like read? Do you guys like read my freaking mind? I just said this. Tyler and I just had this conversation on Saturday. I literally said my RB2 is Trevion Henderson. Like I just said this 2 days ago, dude. I gotta stop thinking about these things because somehow people read my mind. But no, I agree. Trevion Henderson, just as a pass blocker in general, I will take that all day, twice on Sunday. Like, there are so many running. This is a deep, and like I said, this is another reason I just brought this up. I brought it up earlier. Penn State. I think if you would have put Nick Singleton and Kaytron Allen in this class, they're probably within the top 15 of running backs in this class. They're both very talented players, but they're probably sitting there like, well, I can go to the NFL, get picked later because of how loaded this class is, or I could just go back and make some NIL money, and then I'll come out the next year where maybe it's a weaker class. We don't know yet. So, who knows? But that's how a lot of these kids think now is, do I go, like you said with Cooper Flagg, do I even enter the draft? I might as well just stay in school and make some money.
Yep.
The only question I have with Scadaboo at this point is, what does an organization see him as? Do they see him as a running back? Do they see him as a fullback? Or do they see him as a gadget player? Because I don't think he can be a 3-down running back. So he's built for it, but he doesn't have the speed. There's got to be – he's too small to be like a Mike Allstott. He's too small to be a Jerome Bettis. Teams don't use a fullback anymore. So that's why I think his draft stock falls a little bit kind of to like that 3rd round, 4th round range because nobody views him as a straight running back, but you don't really know where to play him. He's almost like a unicorn where you're drafting him solely on his potential.
Yeah.
But what kind of position do you create for him to get him on the field?
Excuse me, sir. There is a team in the NFC West that is upset with you because you just said no team uses a fullback.
Okay, Kyle Juszczyk does not count, and neither does Pat Reichert in Baltimore, neither does C.J. Ham in Minnesota. But nobody else uses a fullback anymore.
What about Sam? Who's the linebacker turned fullback for the Eagles?
He doesn't play fullback. He doesn't play fullback anymore.
Knock it off, Tyler. He played like 5 snaps the whole season.
He got hurt.
It just somehow Saquon had like 80-yard runs on all of them.
Yeah, those are the only 3 teams that use a fullback 50% of their snaps. Otherwise, nobody else uses a fullback anymore. You have teams that use the double running back backfield, or the new version of the fullback now is the 2 or 3 tight end sets where you basically take one of the tight ends off the line, you drop him in the backfield, and that's your blocking fullback. So if you're getting a guy like Scadaboo, how do you use him? Because if you're putting him as a fullback, you better find ways to give him the football at fullback. Otherwise, it's a wasted draft pick at that point.
Yeah.
Not going to lie, I would love to see Cam Scadaboo and Saquon Barkley in the same backfield now. Kind of excited to see that.
Do you know what team makes a lot of sense for Cam Scadaboo? Just because of the way he plays. Chicago makes a ton of sense. He is a typical like Chicago Bears player that when you watch him play, he does whatever you ask him to do to win games. He'll play linebacker if you want him to. He'll play wide receiver. He'll play tight end. He'll play running back. He'll play football. He's just a gamer that wants to get on the field.
Yeah. I think that's an important part of like what a lot of these GMs are going to look for is that he seems to me like he plays with a lot of heart.
Yeah.
And like he always wants to be the hardest working on the field. And those kind of players, they always have the most potential.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that alone, I don't see him falling past the 2nd round. But whatever team does get him, honestly, I think he does get drafted to be a running back. Now, not a 3-down back, but if you can pair him with someone who does get you a little more speed and shiftiness, I think you could have a really good 1-2 punch with him.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I'll say this right now. I drafted him solely just off his performance against Texas. That alone gets him drafted because the guy literally was heaving on the sideline. Like the guy barely he gave his all to try to win
gave
that
more than
football
his
game.
all.
He gave it all. He gave his all, and maybe his brother's all. I don't know. He gave someone else's all in that game because I had never seen someone play like that in a game like that. And I was so sad that on 4th and goal, Arizona State decides to send the blitz at Quinn Ewers. With good wide receivers all around him, and they send a freaking blitz.
Yeah.
All you had to do was play man or zone coverage, and you would have won the game. Because Quinn Ewers ain't. I'm a little higher on Quinn Ewers than I was during the season, but I'll save that for another day. So real quickly, just to catch up on some of these comments, Clint says Julian Sawyer, who transferred from Bama, is in line to be Ohio State starter.
Yeah.
Anthony continues to make jokes about Penn State. I'm not Anthony. Look, you got blown out by Jeremiah Smith. Leave me alone.
I only have one gripe about Penn State. That's all I got. When that game was over against Boise State, they should have let Genty get the record. Just let him get the carry, give him a hole, let him run 30 yards to get the record, and let him fall down.
Hey man, Tom Allen was trying to get his next job after that. He wasn't letting no one do nothing. Hey Tyler, look who's back in the chat with us. Matt's back for the first time in a while.
What's up, Matt?
Yeah, Matt, what's going on? So Anthony said, "I have a feeling Sanders will have a Philip Williams." Oh God, what is it? Now we're talking. I guess Anthony wants to talk about Shador and saying he's a bust. Well, I'll tell you now, Shador's stock is falling. That top 3 pick ain't happening now, from what it sounds like. Clint said Henderson needs to be smarter. Oh, what the frick? Hold on. I love pop-ups right in front of the comments where I can't read it. Henderson needs to be smarter. Too many dumb penalties for unnecessary extra stuff. Okay, but Clint, I'll say this. There are so many running backs in this class that don't pass protect like him.
He blocks better than half the offensive linemen in pass block.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
So he's going to be drafted by the Dallas Cowboys.
Knock it off. And Clint says Scatterboo to me can be a Peyton Hillis type. Oh, boy.
You don't want that because Peyton Hillis was good for 3 years and then nothing.
Yeah.
Probably the worst decision Madden ever made.
Oh, God.
Was to give Peyton Hillis the 2012 cover. Even though I think 12 was the greatest Madden that we had after that. It was a bunch of weird stuff, but Peyton Hillis. I never thought. Honestly, we might as well stop the show because we're talking about Peyton Hillis now. But anyway, let's move on to our next little topic here. So, with the draft coming up next week, and I have some other draft stuff I want to get to a little towards the end of the show, but since the draft is next week, I thought it would be fun this week. Let's talk some trade stuff. NFL is known to have some great trades, but then there's known to be some bad ones. And we've had player-for-player trades not work out. We've had player-for-draft pick trades not work out. We've had draft trade-ups that haven't worked out. Mm-hmm. So I thought it would be fun for the 3 of us and whoever's in the chat with us. Let's talk about some notable bad trades in the modern day around the NFL. Basically, I'm trying to keep this from 2000 on. Not counting Ricky Williams. That was a terrible trade. But we know that. So, look, we can easily, if you guys have one that pops in your head, if we just circle the room here, I'm sure the comments will fly in.
I got 3 of them in the last 7 years.
Okay, well, you want to start us off with one?
He's gonna steal. He's gonna take one of mine. I already know it.
Well, number 3, I'm gonna say the Russell Wilson to Denver trade. Obviously, that relationship in Seattle was tarnished, but what Denver gave up to get him was stupid. And now the fact that he's not even in Denver anymore, they still got to pay him.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he's already on his second team since leaving Denver.
And then the other one that came to mind was the Bears trading up for Mitch Trubisky. because he had one good year in college and he had a decent pro day, so they thought that he was the second coming of Joe Montana.
Yeah. So let's remember that the Bears thought that a North Carolina quarterback for one good year was better than Patrick Mahomes playing at, was it A&M? Texas A&M?
Texas Tech. No.
Oh, Texas Tech.
They thought that Mr. Trubisky was better than
Deshaun Watson at Clemson during Clemson's peak.
Yep.
Winning national title.
Yeah.
And speaking of Deshaun Watson, that is the worst trade in NFL history.
Yes.
That Cleveland Browns trade for Deshaun Watson will forever go down as the worst trade in NFL history.
Well, that's actually kind of what sparked this segment because, Haslam came out, 2-3 weeks ago and said, yeah, we swung and missed on that one. You think?
You swung and missed on it the day that you did it.
Mm-hmm.
They swung and missed more than the Guardians in the ALCS. Sorry, all my Ohio people. By the way, Clint said Hillis was good for 1 year, not 3.
Oh, man.
Peyton Hillis had that. I'm telling you, he had that one great year, and that was it. All right, Tyler, you got any you want to bring up?
I mean, the Trubisky one, that's unfortunately for you, Dustin. I'm sorry. It's one of my favorite ones. I just think it was so outrageous and how it all played out. I think another one. The Texans trading away DeAndre Hopkins for David Johnson.
Damn you.
He literally carried that franchise for years with no good quarterback until young Deshaun Watson came along. Then they traded him for a running back.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of the start of the downfall for D-Hop. He had some good years in Arizona. Then he started getting older, and he went to Tennessee, and we don't talk about him much anymore.
Yeah, now he's a Baltimore.
Chiefs fans don't talk about him much.
Well, yeah. Now he's in Baltimore. I'm hoping this is it for him because I just don't know what he has left. All right, so I'll start with another one. How about the 49ers trading up for Trey Lance?
That one I'm actually not. That one I'm kind of okay with because that was one of those deals where they needed a quarterback, and it was solely a trade made on his potential. Because there was three other teams that were basically saying they were going to trade up to get him. Whether they would have done it is another question. But if you like a guy, you need a quarterback or somebody at that position. If there's three other teams picking behind you that say they're trying to trade up and get that deal done, sometimes you have to reach to get it done.
Okay, and I completely agree with that. Trust me, I'm an Eagles fan. We're used to having to go reach to get some guys that we like. Heck, I mean, look at just a couple of years ago. Look at Detroit's draft. They were scrutinized because they said they reached for Jack Campbell. They reached for Jahmyr Gibbs. Well, end of the day, who's laughing? One of the best teams in the league because of those moves. But I put it there because you did give up that much, and now he's signing vet minimum backup contracts. So that's where I'm at with it. It was the right idea, but it clearly did not work out. So I'm going to stick to my guns on that one. But any other mentions we could think of for some potentially bad trades?
Did you see what the Texans ultimately received off of that Deshaun Watson trade now that the trade is finally complete?
What is it?
So in 2022, they received the first rounder, which became all-pro guard Kenyon Green. 2022, part of that trade, the Texans received Dameon Pierce, who was a 1,000-yard running back the year that Houston got him. 2023's first-round pick, Houston got Will Anderson Jr. out of that trade. 2023 third-round pick, Houston got Tank Dell out of that trade. 2024 first-round pick, Houston got Kwame Lassiter out of that trade, plus Lamal Hill, a linebacker, in 2024. Imagine if Cleveland could have kept that. Those are all players Cleveland could have had a chance to get, but they all went to Houston as part of that trade.
Oh boy,
Cleveland.
That's the luck of Cleveland for you.
So what about the Chargers trading up for Ryan Leaf?
Oh God, not Ryan Leaf. Why I knew somebody was going to bring that up tonight. Why did I just know that was going to happen tonight? I got it going for you. What about the Colts trading for Carson Wentz?
Yeah, when that trade was completed, it was looking pretty good.
I mean, in the Colts' defense, though, Carson Wentz had a good year that year in Indy. It's not like he played bad. He had 25 touchdowns and 5 picks. Like, he did not play that bad in Indy that year.
Yeah, but the final
game was the one where he crapped
those were bad. But then you look at how that trade worked out. It gave you the assets to acquire guys like A.J. Brown, Jalen Carter. I think Cooper DeJean's even involved in that. So if you look at it in terms of that, it is kind of – it's rough.
The Colts always seem to be on the losing end of trades.
The Colts have been on the losing end of anything to do with quarterback since Peyton Manning left. All right, Andrew Luck was there, but then Andrew Luck retired early, and ever since then they've been cursed.
Yeah, they lost there too.
I'm trying to think. I got another Colts one. Trent Richardson for a first-round pick.
Oh, gosh.
There's one for you.
That's one that worked in Cleveland's favor. Because they got him out of town for the first-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing something somewhere a couple of days ago when I was doing my research for this, and somebody brought up the RG3 trade up from Washington. That's not a bad trade.
No. Because nobody knew his knee was going to collapse in the first season.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's their fault. That's Washington's fault that happened.
Yeah, they had him running for his life.
When he shouldn't have been. I'm trying to. All right, last one I can think of, AB to the Raiders. Because I don't even think he played.
No, he didn't make it out of practices.
He didn't make it out.
They voided his contract.
Oh my God.
Hey, I mean, you want to talk about a walking case of CTE? Antonio Brown is right next to it.
That is CTESPN. Get it right. Because they literally, him and Le'Veon both own that name, and it's kind of scary.
Oh my God.
I'm a little scared by. So let me just say, I'm very concerned with some of the things I hear AB say these days. Let's just say that. All right, so Anthony has a question. When the Saints could have drafted Lamar Jackson, would Lamar still have had the same success with the Saints?
No shot.
Not even close because of the scheme that Sean Payton put together. Yep. It was a pocket passing scheme designed around a quick release quarterback that basically took 2 steps back, quick fired it out.
Yep.
Lamar wasn't a polished enough passer to fit into that scheme. Could he do it now? Probably. But when he was drafted, he was not a pocket passer. He did not have a quick release.
Yeah, Sean Payton would have never altered the offensive scheme to fit Lamar Jackson the way Harbaugh did to accommodate his gameplay.
That's ultimately why he wanted Russell Wilson gone, because he wanted to rebuild that Saint system. So he brought in Bo Nix, which is a very similar quarterback to Drew Brees, apart from that Bo Nix can run a little bit.
Yeah, and everyone swore that was the worst pick in the first round last year. But listen, when it comes to the quarterback position, you can think the guy can't play, but if you put the guy in the right system with the right coach, Bo Nix is the perfect example. With the right pieces around him early, you're going to find something. That's why Cam Moore to the Titans, it just makes the most sense. They have, I know he's not the greatest anymore, but they have a wide receiver in Calvin Ridley. They have some decent talent at running back. They've loaded up their offensive line this offseason. They've made all the necessary moves that make it look like, hey, we're taking a quarterback at 1.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not going to be the most far-fetched thing. And like I said, I'm not crazy about this draft class when it comes to the quarterback position, but if you put the right guy in the right spot, who knows? Someone could be Bo Nix this year. Who knows? Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong. There are just some quarterbacks that flat out you could say, yeah, that's not it. Sorry, Mitch Trubisky. I knew it from the start. That wasn't it. Drake May has to save the UNC quarterback curse, and I'm not sure if he'll do it. I think he can, but we'll have to wait and see. So Clint brings up the Aaron Rodgers trade as one of the worst trades.
Yeah, it did not age well.
Yeah, he's not aging well.
He was the second greatest legend coming to New York. He was going to save the Jets. First drop back, second drop back, whatever it was. Boom, out for the year. Comes back next year. Team falls apart from the hinges. Fire Saleh. They just mosey on through the rest of the season. Defense was terrible. Offense looked bad.
Mm-hmm.
Well, defense was bad after they fired Saleh.
It got worse. It was
they were 3-2 with Robert Saleh when they fired him this year. To make matters worse, at the year that they had Aaron Rodgers, not counting his torn Achilles year, but this past year, 9 games into the season, the Jets were 3-6. 2 years prior to that, 9 games into the season, they were 5-4 with Zach Wilson. So obviously, Zach Wilson wasn't the problem, because you had a winning record halfway through the season with Zach Wilson and Robert Saleh's first year as your coach.
Fair enough. That's a fair point. Clint also said that people forgot he told the Browns no originally. You never should have let Baker walk. He played through a shoulder injury and he needed surgery for cause the front office wouldn't commit to him. And Clint says that Baker is still his quarterback. Yeah, that could go down as one of the more boneheaded decisions in an NFL front office. Anthony said, so if the Saints draft Lamar, it would have been a Taysom Hill 2.0. No, Anthony, no one's, first of all.
Taysom Hill still would have had more snaps than him.
Yeah.
Lining up at tight end.
Tight end or running back, however you want to use him.
Tight end, fullback, running back.
Kick returner.
Left tackle, kick returner. I don't know. Pick your poison. I'm not a Taysom Hill guy. It drives me nuts. I have to watch this guy play 90 freaking positions. But, you know, while we're kind of on the Saints, I wanted to bring up, and now this is where we're going to try to segue into our draft stuff. You know, Derek Carr now apparently is iffy for this upcoming season. Apparently he's got another problem with his shoulder that could possibly hinder his availability for 2025. Do we think the Saints are looking at a quarterback now after hearing that, or do we think they're still going to hope and pray that Derek Carr can play?
Both. They're going to hope and pray that he can play because they're in salary cap hell. So they're paying Derek Carr regardless if he plays or not. So obviously they're hoping he can play. Otherwise, you have a $48 million paperweight that's taking a huge chunk out of your salary cap. But they're also obviously going to have to start looking for a quarterback because Derek Carr is 33, I think, going on 34. He's not going to play much longer. You need at least a backup plan to this season if you can't play, but then a backup plan to your future also.
Good point.
Yeah, and I mean, Anthony brings up Jackson Dart. I could say it.
Nope, that's not the team that wants Jackson Dart.
I see so many teams.
There's a team that's trying to trade back into the first round to get Jackson Dart.
The Browns.
Nope. Same division.
Ooh.
Pittsburgh.
Yep.
No.
Jackson Dart
really?
Mike Tomlin like Ben Roethlisberger. He came right out in his press conference the other day and said Jackson Dart is a smaller version of Ben Roethlisberger. And we all know the success that Tomlin had with Roethlisberger.
Man, Tomlin just heard Roethlisberger and he was like, sold.
And then you basically have George Pickens and DK Metcalf. Jackson Dart can have fun with that because he has a big arm.
Yeah. Now the question is where does this leave somebody like, I keep hearing about Jalen Milroe possibly going in round 1 now. Where does this leave him? Because that's not
taking him in round 1.
The same. That's clearly not going to happen. Now Clint just brought up that the hot rumor has been Sanders dropping to the Saints at 9. Is it? The Saints have 9, right?
Yeah, I've honestly seen that, and it's possible. I mean, what are the Saints going to do here? They don't know what's going on with Carr. If they knew Carr was going to be healthy to start the season, they probably wouldn't feel as pressed to take a QB. But now knowing that, they might feel pressured. Okay, Shadur fell down to us at 9. We got to take him and see what we can get out of him. Now, granted, I don't know if they got the right, coaching staff to have him thrive, but
Right now, they have Jalen Milroe predicted to go 34th for the Giants. So basically, the second pick in the second round to the
Giants. There's the Giants quarterback. So does that mean that they're going to take
Travis Hunter?
Oh my gosh. Is that actually a possibility?
Yep, because they want to put the guy from Penn State with Myles Garrett in Cleveland and taking him number 2, Abdul Carter.
Ooh.
Abdul Carter and Myles Garrett on the defensive end in Cleveland.
I've heard a lot of flip-flops between those two. Some people say the Browns like Hunter more and don't want to pair Abdul Carter next to him, and I've heard other people saying, oh, Abdul Carter, Myles Garrett's a no-brainer. I think either one of those two, they're a lock to the Browns and Giants.
Cleveland does like Hunter better, but the issue is Cleveland does not want him to play wide receiver. Hunter wants to play wide receiver. The Giants want him to play wide receiver to pair him with Malik Neighbors.
Yeah.
And you go and get Jalen Milroe as your quarterback in the second round, and you roll with Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston this year to let Milroe sit a year.
Huh. Sounds like someone said that a few weeks ago about Shador, but, I was told I was crazy.
Shadur, you would have to take it. What's the Giants pick 3?
I understand that.
He's not going that high.
Well,
now having Milroe drafted in the second round to sit behind them, sure. If it don't work out, all right, whatever, second round pick. Try again next year.
You act like teams haven't taken quarterbacks in the first round that have had them sit. That was the Eagles' original plan back in 2016 until Teddy Bridgewater's knee exploded.
You mean Carson Wentz?
Oh, no, I was talking about when we drafted Wentz. Bridgewater gets hurt in Minnesota, and then we traded Sam Bradford for a first-round pick.
Oh, yeah.
So basically, the
Vikings. Too.
Well, no, that's what I was going to say. The Vikings, their starting quarterback blows his knee out, so they trade a first-round pick for a guy who already blew his knee out, and then in Philly, he was replaced by a guy who in the future will blow his knee out. So basically, it was just a revolving door of ACL injuries going over there.
And then 3 years later, you handed us Justin Jefferson by trading us to take Jalen Reagor.
Fair enough. That is fair enough. That was the karma we got. We got Bradford a first rounder for him. You got Jefferson. I got Reagor. But I will say that since the Reagor draft, and see now that draft, that was probably Howie Roseman's last really poor draft. But Hurts kind of balances the whole thing out because ever since 2021, Howie Roseman's been on a freaking heater.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
because the year after they took Reagor, he took so much heat for that, and he's like, "Yeah, we can't do that first round pickup again. Like we traded up to get past Minnesota to take a wide out, and we took Jalen Reagor."
That was the moment Howie Roseman's only watched SEC football from now on.
Because the year before that, you guys had a chance to take DK Metcalf.
Oh, don't remind
that
me.
Other receiver that only was in Philly for like 3 years.
JJ or Bagel Whiteside.
Yep. So 2 years in a row, you whiffed on DK and Justin.
But I like to always come full circle. If we took DK and if we somehow had Justin Jefferson, I don't feel like this team would be relatively close to anything that it is right now. And I don't think we get back to another Super Bowl.
No, that's a fair point.
Everything would be different.
Everything happens for a reason, I guess.
It happened for a reason.
All right, so since we're kind of in our draft cycle here, Dustin, since you do cover the Bears, well, let's talk about them for a second. Clearly it was not the year in Chicago Bears fans were hoping for. Offensive line was absolutely putrid.
They didn't have an offensive line. I don't know what you're talking about.
That is also true. I believe Caleb was out there playing 1 versus 11. Maybe 3. Adunes was out there, and so was Keenan Allen for most of the year. I'm very surprised Keenan actually held up as long as he did. But
Well, he missed the first 4 weeks, so I mean, he was 4 weeks behind everybody. So,
Well, that's better than usually the 8 that he misses. So
Right.
he made it. It took him to get to colder weather to get healthier. That's something else that is beyond me. But so they come in now, whole new regime. Ben Johnson. They have Dennis Allen running the defense now. I'll leave you with 2 questions. One, how do you feel about how their offseason has been so far in terms of the hires, free agency, and what do you feel like their biggest needs are heading into the draft next week?
in terms of the offseason, I think they had one of the 2 best offseasons so far. Like, everyone knew they needed to address the offensive line, and they did it without having to go into the draft. They did it by trading for Jonah Jackson and trading for Joe Tooney, who they gave up a 6th and a 7th rounder for. You basically gave up a 6th and a 7th round draft pick for 2 Pro Bowl caliber offensive linemen. Then they go and signed the top center in the draft in Drew Dalman, which was the Bears' biggest weakness on their offensive line for years. They go to the defense and they add that pass rusher from the Colts to give Montez Sweat some help since they didn't have much pass rushing help besides him. They brought in Grady Jarrett now to hopefully be Akeem Hicks 2.0, where you have your run stopper in the middle that can also get after the quarterback. They just extended Jalen Johnson. They just extended Kyler Gordon yesterday. You still got Jaquan Brisker. You still have Kevin Byard as the other safety. Like, the Bears filled all of their holes that they had last offseason, and now they're in a situation heading into the draft where you're picking 10th. You can either trade out of 10 to acquire more picks. You can either give up some of your 2nd and 3rd round picks to move into the top 5 if you really like somebody, or you're in a position where you can just take the best available player or like for other positions of need. Ashton Genty is who the Bears love. Ben Johnson absolutely loves Ashton Genty, and he wants to try to create the Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery 2.0 in Chicago. But in order to do that, they'd have to probably trade into the top 5 because I think Genty's going 6 to the Raiders. So the other 2 names that the Bears are linked to right now are Will Campbell, if he falls to 10 to be their other offensive tackle, and somebody that Sam is very familiar with, Ty Warren, coming into Chicago to be tight end 2.0 next to Cole Kmet.
Whoa, man. I like Tyler Warren's fit there. I mean, like I said, you want a complete do it all tight end. Tyler Warren's the best. Like, somebody was trying to convince something with Colton Loveland being the tight end 1 in this draft. And look, there's no disrespect to Loveland. He is a heck of a player. He is not Tyler Warren. Until I see Loveland taking snaps at quarterback, you're not Tyler Warren. Mm-hmm. Tyler Warren is like a generational talent at tight end. This is going to be a phenomenal pro player. And if Chicago takes that, they are getting Caleb Williams is going to have a new best friend.
Oh, man. With Moore, with O'Dunes, Cole Kmet, that offense will be moving.
And he ultimately replaces Keenan Allen because Keenan Allen was their possession wide receiver last year. That's what Tyler Warren can be.
Yeah. And then, like, I know you said that Ben Johnson really likes Genty, but also I think we're all in agreement. I don't see him getting past the Raiders at 6. Mm-hmm. I think that's the lowest he's going.
Yeah.
Because they literally don't have a running back.
Yeah.
I don't even think there was one on the roster that I could remember.
It's a big piece that they're missing.
Yeah. If you saw the latest mock draft that came out for the Bears today, if they can get a way to get all 3 of these guys, they would probably be the favorites in the NFC North. Because they had the Bears taking either Ty Warren or Will Campbell at 10, depending on who falls to 10. Then with pick number 41, they have the Bears taking Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State. 3 picks later, they have the Bears taking Quenyon Jenkins from Ohio State.
Ooh. And if you're trying to redefine that Gibbs-Montgomery thing, Jenkins makes a lot of sense.
And that's a lot of offensive firepower added to what they already have.
Yeah.
Yeah, because ultimately, the defense, like you said, there's not many holes. I mean, you brought up the secondary. I think the Bears secondary may be one of the more underrated ones in the league with their talent. First of all, Jaquan Brisker guy right here. Loved him at Penn State. Kevin Byard, still easily a capable safety. He has not hit that I wouldn't say he's like lost. He's lost maybe a little bit of a step from his Tennessee days, but they have got so much talent there. And honestly, the biggest addition they came with was bringing in Dennis Allen.
Mhm.
Who, yes, people think Dennis Allen, the head coach. Yes, that's no bueno. I get that, but Dennis Allen as a defensive coordinator, I'm not saying you're going to see the drastic change, but I mean, look what the right DC did for Philly.
Yep.
Dennis Allen could bring that almost that kind of impact to Chicago.
It's a good point because it's like the Eagles didn't get Vic Fangio, the head coach. A lot of these guys are way better coordinators than they'll ever be head coaches.
The top name that whenever people say like some coaches are not made to be head coaches, they're just better as coordinators. Josh McDaniels is a prime example of that. Mm-hmm. The guy was an offensive genius as an offensive coordinator, but every opportunity that he had as a head coach, he showed that he did not know how to run an organization. He could run an offense if he was strictly in control of the offense. But when you put him in control of an entire coaching staff and in charge of an entire team, he got lost and didn't know what to do.
I just think McDaniels has lost anytime Bill wasn't around. But no, yeah, back to what like you just read that 3-rounder off for the Bears. That's what they walk out of this draft.
Well, that's the first two. That's the first 2 rounds because they have 3 second-round picks. They have 4 picks in the top 70.
I forgot they have multiple second-rounders.
They have 4 picks in the top 70. They picked 10, 41, 43, and 68.
Wow.
So now, another thing I wanted to ask you while you're on with this, I wanted to ask you about, the big talker is Caleb Williams, clearly. If you had to fairly evaluate his first season in the league, how would you think he performed through his rookie year? Because personally, we will both admit, heading into that draft last year, we both were more a little bit on Jaden Daniels guys. We really like Jaden. Though, personally, I didn't think Caleb played bad. I thought he was put in a bad position, but I still think he's very talented and has the potential to turn it around. Now they have capable minds doing some thinking finally.
Yeah. I mean, he had the fewest interceptions among all rookie quarterbacks. He had 7 interceptions. He threw over 300 passes without an interception at one point last year. He had 20 touchdowns last year, which was a Bears rookie record, 4 touchdown passes in a single season, and he threw for the second most passing yards in franchise history, only behind Jay Cutler. He did that while getting sacked 68 times.
Yeah, he was just running for his life. He tried to do the best he could.
The thing with the draft last year, and like I was on board with Jaden Daniels, I felt that Jaden Daniels had the most talent among all the quarterbacks. But I also said that Caleb Williams had the most potential among the quarterbacks because we've seen what he can do when he has talent around him. But the quarterback that I thought was the most pro-ready quarterback in last year's draft class was Michael Penix. Just because of the injuries that Michael Penix had to go through, everything he had to go through just to get back on the field. And then you saw what he did when he went to Washington, when he was put in the same system for 2 years. Because people failed to realize when he was at Indiana, got hurt his freshman year, came back and had a very good sophomore season. He was actually beating Ohio State 21-0 at halftime before the defense lost that game 28-27. Got hurt his junior year, ended up with a new head coach the next season, a new system. Then he went to Washington with his old offensive coordinator, and then he just lit it up for 2 years at Washington. I thought Penix was the most pro-ready quarterback, where if I was going to start one of those rookies day one, Penix was the guy I would have started day one.
Yeah.
Yeah. But a team ultimately decided to give Kirk Cousins $200 million.
And bench Kirk Cousins 14 weeks into the season for Michael Penix.
Yep. So now which team trades for Kirk after the draft?
Honestly, the only team that legitimately makes sense is Cleveland. Because if you're trading for Kirk Cousins, you don't have to pay him.
Oh, man.
You don't have to pay Kirk Cousins. His contract has got to be paid out by Atlanta. So you're essentially getting Kirk Cousins for $2 million. And regardless what people think about Kirk Cousins, like I know he gets a bad rap because of his primetime record, but since 2021, Kirk Cousins is 13-4 in primetime. Like the guy has showed up on primetime. And outside of his torn Achilles, the guy is durable as hell. And you know you're going to get 16, 17 starts out of him. And he's a top 6, top 7 quarterback statistically since 2018. Like he is a very good quarterback that just has a bad rap.
Yeah, he's very reliable. You're right. He's always been kind of like joked upon and underrated most of his career, but he puts up the numbers. Like, you don't really ever look at him on a team and like, he's the problem. He's the problem.
Like when he was in Washington, he was putting up 33 points a game, and Washington went 6-10 that year because their defense was giving up 34.
Yeah.
What are you supposed to do as a quarterback if you're scoring 31 points a game and your defense can't stop anybody?
Good point. It's all very good points. And like I said, I mean, if you're Cleveland right now, you're looking at a competition of Kenny Pickett and the ageless wonder known as Joe Flacco. Like, what else are you going to do with that?
The Joe Flacco one, I actually don't mind because look at how Joe Flacco played in Cleveland 2 years ago. He went 5-2 in those final 7 games, got Cleveland into the playoffs. Granted, he crapped the bed in the playoff game, but he went 5-2 down the stretch that season for Cleveland and is the reason why Cleveland got into the playoffs. So he's walking into a system that he's already familiar with and that he's had success with Kevin Stefanski.
That is true. You're spot on with that. So
that's why I wanted to get as a backup quarterback, honestly.
Yeah. So Clint said earlier that if the Browns draft Hunter, he wants him to play receiver unless he's taking Newsom's spots, then he's all for it. I personally think Hunter is a better wide receiver in the NFL than he is a corner. I think that's just my personal opinion. Anthony then said a team that should trade back is New England. Anthony, absolutely not. They need an offensive lineman it's nothing. Then Anthony said, are you drafting Travis Hunter because he plays two ways because he's not the best wide receiver in the draft? I also agree with that, but I think he's a better wide receiver than a corner. And I will let you guys answer that in a sec. I just want to get his last comment. And he says, you don't think a surprise might happen and Kirk gets traded to the Steelers? No, Anthony, because they're sitting around waiting for Mr. Darkness retreat.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, let me ask you both that. Like, where do you guys have is Travis Hunter strictly being a top 5 pick because he can play 2 positions?
Yes and no.
I do think he's a very talented wide receiver.
So do I. But I think. No, go ahead, Dustin. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's the main reason why he's viewed as a top 5 pick is because people know he can play both ways. Where let's just say you draft him as a wide receiver and it doesn't pan out. Well, he can also play defensive back, so you can just move him to defensive back, or vice versa. You draft him to play defensive back. If he shows that he can't play defensive back in the NFL, you just move him to wide receiver, and you're not losing anything out of that first round pick. Ultimately, taking him in that first round, you get that 5th-year option. So you have a little bit more time to kind of play around with where his best fit is.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, if you draft him and you start him as first year, wide receiver, doesn't mean you have to keep him there forever.
I think whoever drafts him this year is going to play him both ways at least some part of the season.
Yeah, not full-time both ways, but a part-time on each side of the football.
Yeah.
Just to see how he does, which one he excels at more at the pro level.
And that's why that 5th-year option is so important, because even if you play around with him for 2 years, let's just say, and then by the end of year 2, you're not as good of a defensive back as you are a receiver. We're going to just make you a receiver, or vice versa. Now you have 3 full years just to put him at one position where he's dedicating 100% of his time and effort at that one position.
Yeah, because I don't think it's realistic to ask to see him play the way he has at Colorado. His body will not hold up for more than, I'd say 5 years if he tried that.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I personally have him better as a wide receiver. That's where I have him at. Because and it's not that he's not a bad corner. I just think my cornerback one in this draft is Will Johnson, the kid from Michigan. That's just my personal opinion. That's my guy. He's my favorite corner whose tape I've watched. So I like Hunter. Don't get me wrong. I think Travis Hunter's the biggest reason Shedeur Sanders is going to be a first-round pick. Because, like I said, I love Shedeur. I like him. I don't love him. There's nothing on the tape that wows you. There's no wow factor for it. Because, people make a good point. If his last name wasn't Sanders, where would he even be at Colorado? Because the only reason he went to Colorado is because his dad took him with him.
He wouldn't.
No, he'd be at Florida State somewhere.
Which, by the way, I was watching a couple running back tapes last night. I was watching DJ Giddens, the kid from Kansas State, and I was watching the kid Neal from Kansas, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was watching their tapes, and I was watching their games against Colorado. Oh my God, Shiloh Sanders stinks. Oh my God.
Well, I will say this. I know we talked about this a couple minutes ago. When it comes to Shedeur Sanders, since we're talking about Colorado right now, do not be shocked if Dallas trades into the top 10 to take Shedeur Sanders. The reason why I say that is I think Brian Schottenheimer gets fired after one season as head coach, and I think Deion Sanders is brought in to be the head coach because him and Jerry Jones almost had the agreement this offseason. And I think Jerry Jones is going to realize that he had his guy in the building, let him get away, and he was stuck with going with a guy that was already on the staff.
Yep.
You don't think that new extension
gives
in Colorado
gives him more leverage?
What?
And it gives him more leverage.
Yeah.
So we don't think that new extension in Colorado put that to bed?
No, because Dallas will pay that man $20 million a year if they have to. Because you got what people don't realize when it comes to the NFL coaches, whatever you're paying your head coach, whether you pay him $10 million, $15 million, $20 million, etc., coaches' salaries do not count against your salary cap.
Yep.
You could pay Deion Sanders $20 million a year for 10 years if you want to, and that does not go against the cap.
Deion has a buyout clause.
Yep.
Jerry Jones, he's writing the check.
He'll write that check. He's like, oh, the buyout clause is what, $8 million? Here's $20 million. Here's your buyout clause. Deion, here's your 10-year, $200 million contract. Welcome aboard. And then the Dallas Cowboys would be in position to trade Dak Prescott. And you would have teams like the New York Giants and all these other quarterbacks looking for a team going after Dak Prescott at that point.
Yeah. I think they will definitely, to answer Anthony's comment, they'll try to trade Dak. Because there will still be teams out there that are desperate. There's always going to be a couple teams desperate for quarterbacks.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're Dallas and you're sitting there with Dak, you're going to have to start asking yourself how much. I mean, I think we've kind of peaked at this point.
So I said it back when Jerry gave him that big contract extension. What was it, a year ago now? 2 years ago now?
It was just last year.
Yeah, just last year. I was like, Jerry Jones would rather pay this man a boatload of money for mediocrity, knowing that his team will stay kind of relevant with getting like 10 wins a year, than to, try and suffer and find their next franchise quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, as of right now, when it comes to Dallas, all we're sitting here waiting on right now is what's going on with Micah and his contract.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the ultimate piece, in my opinion, too, because if Dallas is picking at 12 and they're trying to get a guy like Shedeur, like if he's already fallen out of the top 5, Micah Parsons is going to be part of that deal. So whoever's picking at 6, you trade Micah Parsons and something else to move from 12 to 6. You draft Shedeur. You let Brian Schottenheimer kind of be what Lovie Smith was in Houston, where when they hired Lovie Smith in Houston, they specifically told him, like, you're not our guy. You are coming here for one season, basically to have us reset everything in this organization, and then we're going to go in a different direction. And Lovie Smith was fine with it. I think Brian Schottenheimer is going to be a similar situation without obviously saying that to him. He's just going to go there to stabilize the situation, knowing that he was the last option as their head coach. You draft Shedeur Sanders. You ride one more year with Dak. You make the trade for Dak, and then you go and get Deion.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing when it comes to Micah being involved in it, what's a good pass rusher if nothing else works, right? You don't have a future even with him. So, Plus, if I was Dallas, I would personally just be like with Micah, like, yeah, shut the podcast down during the season. Like, it's cute when the Kelseys do it, but they're one's retired, one's basically got one foot out the door. Knock this crap off. You're not them. Please stop. We've already got enough jokes on our mind with you. But now, wrapping up here, because I don't really have much else to talk about, but Dustin, another thing I want to ask you is, I know you cover the Bears, but I have another team I want to talk to you about, and that would be the Vikings. Because you have brought that up as your team.
Yeah.
What do you think they're looking like heading into next week?
I think they're kind of in this situation where you're at the best player available at this point. You need a safety, so I like the Georgia safety. I can never remember his name, but I like that Georgia safety if they can get him at 24.
You stay away from my Bulldogs, okay? You can go take a nice kid from Notre Dame, but you stay away from Malachi.
We have a nice kid from Notre Dame. His name is Harrison Smith, and he's the first ballot Hall of Famer when his career's done.
Fair point.
So I think if we went after another Notre Dame safety, I'd be fine with it. But I don't know. Like Minnesota has, in my opinion, they have a complete roster. I mean, you look up and down that roster, outside of the question marks with J.J. McCarthy, not knowing what he is yet as a quarterback because he hasn't played yet. Where do you realistically see a hole on Minnesota's roster?
You don't.
Like the offensive line was why Minnesota lost to the Rams and the Lions the last 2 weeks. So what did they do? They signed Will Freeze to a 5-year, $90 million deal. They went and got Ryan Kelly as their new center. Brian O'Neill is a 4-time Pro Bowler. Christian Darrisaw is a first-team All-Pro. And now they basically are just looking for a left guard. Defensively, they got Jonathan Allen from the Commanders, who is now going to be paired with Andrew Van Ginkel and Jonathan Grenard on the right side. Good luck blocking the right side of the line. Then you go and got Javon Hargrave from the 49ers to pair in the middle with Harrison Smith. Good luck running up the middle. You brought back Byron Murphy. We got the cornerback from the Eagles to go to the other side. We brought in Harrison Smith back on a 1-year deal. Like, there realistically is not many holes on that team right now. And Kevin O'Connell is one of the more underrated head coaches in the NFL. Like, all you have to do is look at what he did with Sam Darnold last year. Look at what he did with Josh Dobbs when Josh Dobbs was the emergency fill-in for Kirk Cousins when Kirk Cousins got hurt. And then you just look at what Kirk Cousins has been able to do with Kevin O'Connell in the 2 years that he was with Kevin O'Connell. Like, I believe that J.J. McCarthy is going to be good. But any other coach, and if any other coach was in Minnesota, I would not believe in J.J. McCarthy. It's the fact that every quarterback that O'Connell has worked with has had instant success. And this is the one situation where Minnesota's pushing all their chips to the table. You have a rookie quarterback for 4 more years on a rookie deal. Now is your chance to spend as much money as possible building up your roster. If you look at all their free agency deals this season, what do they all have in common? They were all 3 or 4 year contracts, which lines them up with J.J. McCarthy's 4 years. This is their window where they're pushing all the chips to the table.
Yeah, and I want to bring up 3 key points that you just brought up now. I've always been higher on J.J. McCarthy than most. Mm-hmm. I always say the kid, not only did the kid play well at Michigan, he ran a pro-style offense under Harbaugh, but also I like kids in college that do this thing called win, and J.J. won.
Yep.
So that always helps. I've always been higher on him than most. I think it was great that they decided early that Aaron Rodgers was not worth their time, nor is he worth anybody's time at this point in his career. But the other 2 things you brought up was their offensive addition, and I love it because, you know, they had a really good pass rush last year with Van Ginkel and Grenard, but they really missed that interior pressure from their defensive tackles. You got 2 of the best ones in Jonathan Allen, and as Eagle fans, we know how good Javon Hargrave can be as a pass-rushing D tackle. Now, against the run, I'm not going to say anything because I also witnessed that part of his game, but for what you strictly need him for, it's perfect. And then again, offensive line struggled against the Rams, against the Lions. You loaded it up in the offseason. And J.J. McCarthy's going to walk into a top defense led by Flores. Mm-hmm. Then you have a top offensive line. Oh, not to mention, you probably have one of the best skills position groups in the NFL with Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson, Aaron Jones. You got the kid Mason from the Niners, who I think that's such an underrated pickup. And I don't know what San Francisco's thinking. I know I'm surprised George isn't here to get pissed off at this, but I understand San Fran just throws in any concession worker behind their offensive line in their zone run scheme. But Mason was good, and they're trading him.
They're a running back factory.
Stay healthy.
There will be someone who steps in next year when McCaffrey misses time.
Isaac Guerrero, he did fine last year.
Exactly, he's another one. That's why they weren't worried.
But the other player that Minnesota has that people forget they even have was predicted to be a top 3 pick last year. Somehow fell to 17, and Minnesota gave up 3 picks for him. Dallas Turner. is going to be used so much more on the defense next year. Now that you added Jonathan Allen, you can put Dallas Turner on the other side of the line now. Who is going to block any one of those guys straight up 1-to-1?
Nobody.
You could all-out blitz the whole game, which Brian Flores does more than anybody at this point now. But you legitimately have 5 guys on that defense capable of giving you 10 sacks right now, where you could all-out blitz that whole game, and the quarterback is going to be running for his life.
Yeah, I mean, that Vikings defense last year was already loaded. And like you said, the secondary, Harrison Smith, you brought back Byron Murphy. You took Isaiah Rodgers from me. Thank you very much. But it's at the end of the day, Isaiah Rodgers is still a really good corner. He just didn't play much in Philly because they had so many. Darius
He's going to
Slay,
be the nickel corner this year. He's not even going to be on the outside. He's going to be their nickel corner.
That's secondary. That whole defense is stacked in Minnesota. But I did want to also bring up something. Anthony brought this up. I did want to take a minute to show some condolences to LSU wide receiver Kyron Lacey, who we all heard over the weekend passed away. We kind of already have heard what possibly has transpired. So I just want to take a second to say to people, check in on your loved ones. Tell them you love them. Make sure they're okay. Because I'm just going to leave it at that. I don't like to get very emotional with that stuff, but check on your loved one.
And
then Anthony, of course.
And the thing that sucks about that whole situation was, I legitimately think he was the one wide receiver in this class that nobody talked about enough.
Yeah,
because all you hear about is Luther Burden, Isaiah Bond. You hear about the guy Tetrafron McMillan from Arizona. You hear about everybody else, but this guy from LSU. And if you look at his stats last year at LSU, he was putting up similar numbers to Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. Yeah. But nobody ever talked about him. Like, I legitimately think he could have been the steal of the draft if somebody would have been like sitting around 26, 27. They didn't need a wide receiver, but it's like, this guy's still here at 27. Like, why not?
It was the off the field issues hanging over his head.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. But that's what I'm saying. Like,
shot.
Had this not happened, if he's sitting there at 27 yet and nobody's taking him, you're going to have a situation where any team picking late, we'll just say Kansas City since they do it all the time anyways. Chiefs are sitting there at 32. Oh, this guy's still sitting here? Well, let's just take him now and get that fifth-year option out of him. We'll figure out what to do with him on the offense.
Put him the opposite of Rashee Rice. We'll just watch that unfold.
Oh, no, you'll put him on the opposite of Rice with Worthy in the slot.
Oh dear God, that would have been a trio made of. That's the trio. That's the wide receiver trio from hell.
And you got to remember that Hollywood Brown also just re-signed with Kansas City, so it's not like they're going to be short on him either.
Just run 4 verticals, you might as well. Someone's going to get. Honestly, that you have to have a play in your playbook saying it has to be named F it. Someone's got to be open. Like, that has to be a play.
If you run 4 verticals, that leaves the entire middle of the field open for Kelsey. Because everyone's going to be 30 yards downfield, and Kelsey's going to be like this. I'm open. Throw it to me.
Oh, my God.
Kelsey's going to say F, and I'm going deep, too.
Yeah, well, there is a rumor going around right now, and don't be surprised to see it pop up as the season goes on. Tyreek Hill going back to Kansas City isn't as far-fetched as what people might think.
I've always thought that's been a realistic option. I was saying it when the offseason first started. I literally, if Tyreek Hill was going to leave Miami, there were 3 teams, and they ironically all play in that division. I said Chargers, Broncos, Chiefs.
Yep. Do not be surprised if at some point heading into training camp you hear Tyreek Hill either getting traded to Kansas City or those talks heating up a lot more.
It happened next week for all we know.
Yep. And if you bring Tyreek Hill back to that offense, now you have Hill, Rice, Worthy, and Hollywood. And you still have Kelsey. You still have Pacheco. The Chiefs did bring back Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, that becomes very, very scary if that happens.
Because, like, I give Philadelphia a ton of credit for how they were able to stop Kansas City in the Super Bowl, but Kansas City did a lot of that on their own, as in not knowing how to block. And when they did have passes hit them in the hands, they could not catch. People fail to realize that this was probably the worst offense Kansas City has ever had under the Patrick Mahomes tenure.
It was
still a 15-win football team.
I think it was one. I think their record did not reflect the way they played at all.
No, they played like a 9 or a 10 win team, and they won 15 games with the worst offense he has ever had. If they get anywhere close to where they were in 2019 when they had Hill, that defense is still a top 10 defense. Like, there is not going to be a team that can score in the regular season 35 points with them if they can consistently put up 30-plus points.
Yeah, but I think, honestly, outside of if they get Tyreek Hill back, that's amazing. But the first thing they got to focus on, they got to fix that left tackle position. It's been a revolving door for years. They have got to fix it because the guy got smoked the entire. I mean, Joe Thuney was playing left tackle, and we saw how well that went. Oh, Clint! I was waiting for someone to bring it up. I was waiting for someone to bring up a referee comment.
I mean, if you really want to make that argument with me, Clint, get ready and strap in. Who had the second most penalties called against them in the NFL last year? That would be the Kansas City Chiefs. So the next time people want to say that Chiefs had the refs on their side, look at who has the most penalties called in the NFL. Kansas City had the second most penalties called against them in the NFL.
I mean, they do hold a lot on both sides of the football.
That's
feel
what
like when you look at Kansas City,
if the refs were against them, they would let Kansas City get away with that, which they don't.
I feel like Kansas City, they get a lot of the close game swaying calls towards them.
Which that I agree, but at the same time, everyone points back to that Cincinnati game in week 2 when they said, "Oh, that wasn't pass interference." The guy on Cincinnati legitimately shoved Xavier Worthy in the back.
Yeah. No, I was actually one of the people. I said it, and Sam disagreed heavily with me that was PI. That was a good call.
And then the week after that, the Atlanta game, Kansas City should have got called for PI on that 2-point conversion. It never happened. But if you watch the replay, because you could not challenge pass interference calls at that point, if you watch the replay, the ref that was supposed to make that call could not see because he had a linebacker directly in front of his face here. He had a tight end in front of his face here. He could not see anything in front of him but the ball throwing and hitting the ground. He can't throw a flag for what he can't see. Because he was the referee that had the ref cam, and they actually showed the ref cam the next day on ESPN. You couldn't see anything. All you could see was 3 guys literally standing in front of him. He couldn't see the guy cutting across the middle. All he saw was the throw coming and the throw hitting the ground.
So you're saying
he supposed to throw the flag?
We need to get the refs on stilts next season.
And then the Josh Allen play in the playoffs that everyone wants to go back and say he got the first down. There is one camera angle that if you look at the camera angle, Josh Allen was leading. So if he's facing, Josh Allen's left shoulder broke the play. Problem is the ball was in his right arm. That right arm never got to the line to gain, and that is where that near sideline official was looking. His left arm broke the plane, and that's why people thought he had the first down because his left side of the body crossed. Ball was not on the left side. The ball was on the right side, and he was 3 inches short.
Yeah, I think people forget that. It doesn't matter where the guy's body is. It's where the ball. No one cares where the body is. And it's funny I get to hear McDermott complain about the tush push so much, but yet he just is upset he can't successfully execute it. With a quarterback who's, 6'5"? I mean, Jalen Hurts is only like 6 feet tall. And like I said, I don't care if the push gets altered or banned or not. We'll just run a normal QB sneak. My quarterback freaking squats 600 pounds. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
But the teams that are against it, they are strictly against it because they can't run it. I mean, look at the Chiefs. They tried it with Mahomes, and then he dislocated his kneecap, and they said, "Yeah, we're never doing this again." They stopped doing it.
Now they run it with Travis Kelce.
So the Packers are running it with Tucker Kraft. Oh.
Yeah, because
at the end of the day, it just is what it is.
Yeah.
But anyway, Tyler, do we have anything else we want to bring up tonight?
I think that was everything.
I think we basically hit the entire. Basically, we hit everything on the nose that we wanted to tonight.
Anthony said before you end the show, his DC Defenders are 3-0.
Yes, they are. They beat the Battlehawks the other day.
You guys actually watch that stuff?
Yes, I actually do.
I've been watching Super Bowl 59 highlights for 3 months now.
I will say this: this UFL now is an absolute horrible product. Like it is
that
horrible.
bad.
Yeah, it is horrible now. The best spring football we ever had was the 2020 version of the XFL before COVID canceled it.
Oh man,
That XFL was amazing to watch when you had Josh Johnson as the quarterback for the LA Wildcats. You had PJ Walker, which is how he ended up getting signed by the Panthers, just going off in 5 XFL games. You had NFL players galore, Sammy Coates. You had Josh Gordon. You had NFL players galore in that spring league. Now it's a bunch of undrafted players that are here just to hopefully make a practice squad someday. And you have a 31-year-old who's played in every single spring league since 2017, starting for Arlington, who was a Philadelphia backup a couple years ago. Luis Perez.
Oh my God!
He's played in every single spring league. He played in the AAF in 2018. Then he went to the XFL in 2020. Once the XFL got shut down, he played in the actual league called the Spring League in 2021. Then he went back to the XFL in 2022, went to the USFL in 2023, and now he's been in the UFL the last 2 years.
Oh my God!
He will not give up.
Speaking of Josh Johnson, he signed with Washington again.
He's with his 17th organization in his 14-year career.
Wow. He's looking to break a record. Congratulations. Was he trying to beat Fitzpatrick's record for playing on almost every NFL team?
Probably.
He's good. I'm not going to say he's a starter, but he is a good backup.
Yeah.
You need him to start a couple of games. He can win you a couple of games.
Mm-hmm.
He's a perfect backup to have.
You can do a lot worse at backup.
Yeah, they do. Captain Four Eyes Rodrigo Blankenship.
Oh my gosh.
That's what I was thinking about.
Wow.
Rodrigo Blankenship. Oh my God.
Whatever happened to him? Because, like, I remember him coming out of Georgia, man. I was like, this guy might be the next best kicker.
He got hurt and then he got cut.
Ah, man.
Yeah, usually when you suffer an injury as a kicker, it's all over.
Yeah, you don't get many chances after.
You really want to watch a good kicker in the UFL, you got to watch San Antonio because their kicker is going to get signed to the NFL just because he's a massive YouTuber.
Oh, I think I've heard of it. Is that Destroying?
Yep.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Destroying made a 57-yard field goal on Saturday and probably made it by about 15 yards. Like, it hit the net halfway up.
Jeez.
He was making 85-yard field goals on one of his YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Clint said Josh Johnson needs to make his goal to play for every NFL team at this point. He's got to be at least halfway there, right?
He's over halfway. He's at 17. That's over half the league now.
He should go in the Hall of Fame just for that.
I think it was 2021 or 2022. He was on 4 different organizations the same year.
Whoa.
God. You know, the day Josh Johnson retires, we're all going to be very sad because we're going to miss these jokes about him.
There'll be a new one.
I mean, come on. You can pay me $2 million to hold a clipboard. I'll play for all 32,
right?
I will play for all 32 teams for 32 years if you want to pay me $2 million a year to hold a clipboard. Sign me up.
Forget that.
Yeah, right?
I'll take a $750K deal per year. I'm ready. Throw me in. I'll hold it down. I'll call a hike. Take a hit.
Are we talking about the NFL or the NIL money situation?
Either or.
I mean, that's the veterans minimum at this point in the NFL is $2.5 million. So if you get signed to a veterans minimum, you're at $2.5 million a year. I will hold a clipboard for that.
Don't tell Nico that's the minimum. He'll never play in the NFL day in his life.
Oh, man.
Exactly.
At this rate, he might not.
Well, he's not a veteran.
He's
not a veteran, though. He can't get that deal yet. He's not a veteran. The veterans minimum is $2.5 million. The NFL minimum is $473K.
That's about what it would be for him. But I think that is basically going to wrap up anything that we had to talk about tonight. So before we get off, Dustin, we want to thank you so much for coming on with us tonight. I mean, we talked basically anything. We were all over the place, from the NIL stuff to the draft to basically anything we wanted to talk about. So Dustin, if you want, tell the people where can they find you. I know I said you're senior writer for Chicago Sports HQ.
Yeah, it's pretty much where you can find all my stuff. I also do stuff for like the local high schools around my area. So I pretty much have just plenty of content all out there.
Very nice. But we want to thank you for coming. We do want to thank you for coming on with us tonight, and we're hoping you'll be on with us in the future because absolute great show tonight.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Of course. So anyone, like I said, go check out Dustin, all his stuff at chicagosportshq.com. Anything for Chicago sports fans, Bears, Cubs, the whole 9 yards. They'll take good care of you over there if you are a Chicago sports fan. As for us, we will be back next Monday. Draft preview show will be here. Dustin, you'll be at the draft, right?
I will be at the draft all 3 days.
Nice.
Oh, we'll be getting that. We'll be getting that coverage, those coverage comments. But everyone, thank you all for joining us tonight. Big week for us next week. We'll be on 3 times next week. Next Monday, normal show as always. And then we'll be on Thursday night, NFL Draft Night 1. And we'll be also on for Draft Night 2 for at least a decent portion of it. Not sure if we'll be on for the whole night, but 3 days of draft coverage next week. So we are going to be very busy. Shoot.
Do you guys want to leave an open-ended link on Friday, and I could potentially sign in from the draft?
That sounds good to me. That sounds perfect.
Thursday,
that sounds fine to me.
Thursday can't happen because I will be in the green room on Thursday, so Thursday can't happen.
Oh, nice.
Friday I will be just in the draft, just walking around just the people. Thursday I'll be in the green room. So Thursday will be but Friday I could, if you send the link, I could buzz in on Friday.
That's perfectly fine with us. I think that'll be a nice little experience to see. So before we do get going, I don't like to let comments go unread while they're on here. So I do want to say real quick that Clint did put out another comment saying about the destroying playing at UCF, but when the program told him he couldn't do YouTube videos, he left. That's funny.
Fair enough.
And then Carol just wanted to tell us all to have a great week. Thank you, Carol. We will see you next week. For everyone that joined us tonight, thank you so much. We appreciate all the comments, all the support. Once again, one last shout out to Dustin. Thank you for joining us once again, sir, and we will be seeing you probably next Friday during the draft. But as for us, we'll be back on Monday, draft preview. We're going to have a first-round mock draft we're going to do live on the show. So see you guys all next week. Have a safe week, and get ready for all the mayhem that next week shall bring. For Dustin Reese, Kyler Adams, I'm Sam Nelson. Good night, everybody.